Good morning and welcome to A Closer Look. I'm your host, Linda Fontaine. Today, my special guest is our mayor, Pat Shull, the mayor of Kingsport. Thank you for being here today, Pat.
Thank you, Linda. I appreciate you having me.
Well, let's talk about, of all things, Kingsport. What is the state of Kingsport? What's going on with our city these days?
Well, you use that term, state of the city. We're actually going to do a presentation hosted by the Chamber of Commerce on Friday, November 5th, do a formal State of the City talk. This will be the third time I've done this, third time the city manager's done it as a city manager, and so we're preparing for that now. The way we do it is we get introduced, I start, the city manager then does his part, and then we take questions. And so we're looking forward to questions. And I want to thank you again for having me, because one of the themes that I want to hit on is the need to continuously communicate with our citizens, which I find to be at times hard. I'll give you an example. I meet with citizen groups frequently, and this has been probably 2 years ago. I met with a group of young people, young to me anyway. They were in their 30s and 20s, and they had jobs. They're in town, you know, and I guess I brought up an article in the newspaper, and one of them raised their hand and said, "Mayor, I don't read the newspaper." I say, "Oh, really?" So I went around the room, and none of them read the newspaper. So that's kind of an example of people communicate in different ways. I asked them, "How do you get your information?" "Well, I go online." "Well, how do you know if it's accurate?" "Well, it depends on the source, and if one of my buddies endorses it, I tend to give it more credibility." So I find that, my wife Mary always says that people know all about Pepsi and Coke, but they continue to advertise. So we have to continually communicate to the citizens what we're doing, why we're doing it. Now, you take, for instance, the citizens that have moved here within the last 4 or 5 years, they may have come from somewhere where they didn't have council, manager, form of government. So I explained to folks how that works. Some people think that I get paid an enormous amount of money. The mayor makes $8.22 a day. So then, of course, I go on social media and I don't comment much. I go on just to see what people are saying, and sometimes it's a little frustrating for me. Another example is, a much beloved restaurant, Rush Street, is closing, to me this is a great thing, because that family's worked hard for many, many years, and now they have a chance to sell their property at a good price because it's a good location, and retire. And I think we should all be happy for them. So what's going to go in there? Well, my understanding is a car wash will go in there.
Oh, no.
And I know, well, see, that's the reaction. Citizens will go, "Oh, no." Well, I don't look at it like that. I look at that, well, if someone wants to build a car wash, this is a free market. We're into free enterprise in the United States. And if they think they can make money, well, that's fine. Another example, a few weeks ago, a fellow went on Facebook and he was commenting on the new hotel. It's going up near Wilcox Drive, but near the Social Security building there.
Oh, yeah.
And it was kind of funny. On one level, he said, we need a new hotel like we need another car wash. But on the other hand, a new hotel is a great thing. There is no downside to having a new hotel here. That means that the Marriott Corporation, who's building this, believes that they can make money here, and if they're making money at that new hotel location, it's evidence of people coming to Kingsport and spending money and generally helping the economy. The Metaview and the Chamber do a wonderful job of bringing people to our city for all kinds of reasons. You might have read about the Doberman, a show they had at the Marriott at the Metaview recently. The AKC Kennel type organization, which is nationwide, they had Dobermans. Well, they're going to come back before long, and they're going to have another breed of dogs. See, they like to have dog shows of just one breed, and that kind of leads up to finding the best in the breed, and then they go on to the overall competition. So they loved Kingsport. They couldn't say enough good things about the amenities, the the accommodations and so forth. So it's a challenge to continue to communicate with people and explain how things work sometimes. You thought maybe they would have picked up on that earlier on in their life through school or some way, just living. But a hotel is a good thing. There's no downside to a hotel.
That's true. I was reading yesterday that Tennessee is in one of the top 5 states where people are moving to.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I know we've had a lot of people move here recently. I mean, look at the housing market. It's hard to find a house. I mean, if you don't call that day, it's gone.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure the city manager, when he gets to his part of the State of the City, will talk about the homes that we have and somewhere along the pipeline, from a lot that just got cleared to, a house that just got finished. We've got somewhere between 1,500 to almost 2,000 homes somewhere in that pipeline. So we're looking forward to that.
That is pretty cool. Now, I got to just mention, I was just thinking about this the other day, the goats. I saw the goats. I was walking with my son and I said, there's supposed to be some goats up there. And we looked and we were like, son of a gun, there's the goats up there on Cement Hill.
Yeah. I got interviewed by one of our local TV channels on the goats. And that story was so interesting. Mary told me yesterday that her relatives in Pennsylvania saw it.
Really?
So the national network must have passed it on to their local markets. And so it was just a human interest story. We got the goats doing this work, which is actually a cost-effective way of doing it, of clearing out all that kudzu.
I do think 50 goats they're going to be fat when they're done with Cement Hill. I'm telling you, there's a lot up there for them to eat. How long is that going to take?
Well, John Rose, our economic development guy, he told me it's going to take, they're going to do this until they hit the second frost. And I guess after that, the vegetation is not as attractive to the goats.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Well, tell me about the new City Hall. You guys are in your new digs now, right?
Yeah, and it's enabled us to consolidate a lot of functions into one building where it's easier for the city staff to talk to each other. I guess from a mayor's perspective, what jumps out at me is we have to bring in a lot of people from the outside that come to Kingsport for whatever reason. And if you've got, say, someone who's considering bringing a significant business to Kingsport, the new City Hall is pretty impressive for giving people a good first impression of our city.
That is pretty cool. What are they doing with the old building?
They're gonna rent out a few spaces. Eventually, we're going to have to figure out what to do. This renting out is a temporary kind of thing, but it really depends on how we go about expanding across the parking lot, the Justice Center, where the courts are and the police station. They really do need more room.
That's true. So how's the Main Street project going?
Oh, gee, that's, I hate to say anything bad about TDOT because they're paying for 80% of this project, and it's a Tennessee Department of Transportation project. So we're just kind of have to wait for their schedule. But we anticipated it would have started this past summer. It hadn't yet, and it eventually will kick off. I mean, in the meantime, the areas that we have a little bit more control over, we've continued to increase our funding toward pavement, and the number of miles we pave, and just in general, accelerating the rate of paving since I became mayor.
Yeah, I remember potholes was a big issue. People wanted to have the potholes taken care of. I remember that. Last
night we had a BMA meeting, and we passed on first reading a resolution to spend around $8 million, of which $5 million came from the federal government due to COVID. The ARPA Act, the American Recovery Plan Act, which was COVID relief.
Oh, really?
So we have a ton of projects in there, which includes some paving.
Good. And what other projects?
Oh, it's across the board. Yeah. Mainly, it's really directed at taking care of our infrastructure. When you think about it, the city has a lot of facilities ranging from all our school buildings to City Hall to the Civic Auditorium, you name it, Allendale, and it's really making sure they all are maintained.
Well, I think it's important for people to know that, because you have talked about trying to get a jump on these potholes, but a lot of the problem, like you were saying with Main Street, it's not your timeline, it's TDOT's timeline.
Yeah.
You guys are doing everything you can to get that done, right?
Oh yes, and remember, this is a major thing. This is not just resurfacing. They got to dig down several feet and replace the soil. I mean, it's a major thing. They'll do a block at a time.
Okay. Well, what other pearls of wisdom regarding the city of Kingsport would you like to share with us before our time is up?
Well, we mentioned the people moving to Kingsport. I mean, my recommendation to you would be to interview Jeff Fleming sometime about the Move to Kingsport program.
Oh, that'd be great.
Been very successful. And you know, when I meet people that have moved here the last 4 or 5 years, they're just so happy and upbeat. And when citizens, longtime citizens, ask me about this, they say, well, yeah, did they bring their attitudes from these other places to Kingsport? No, they fled those other places to come to a place in which they felt they were more compatible.
Yeah, and a lot of people mention that to me too. Well, I hope they don't bring their ways here. And I said the exact same thing. I thought, well, if they're leaving that place, chances are that they want to try something new. So yeah, I agree with you. I think it's fantastic. Hopefully that will help our city grow in a positive direction.
Well, the census showed, of course, that we grew over 7,500 citizens, and you know, it was cut off in April 2020, and I believe here's over a year's gone by, we continue to grow.
That's fantastic. Pat, thank you as usual for being here and updating us on all things Kingsport, and thank you for joining us. This is A Closer Look.